Hello and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV, a destination for everything politics, policy and governance. I am Shafiu Suleiman. Tonight on the program, we put the spotlight on River State as President Tinubu declared a state of emergency in River State, citing worsening insecurity, governance lapses and economic distress. This bold move signals the federal government's intent to restore economic distress. This bold move signals the federal government's intent to restore order in the troubled region. But what does this declaration truly mean for governance, security, and the daily lives of residents? What powers does the 1999 Constitution as amended grant to the President in such situations? What are the legal, political, and social implications of this decision? We will unpack the details and the potential consequences in a short while. And also to provide experts legal insight, we'll be speaking with Barrister Chukwudi Odoeme, who is a professor of international law. Is joining us in the studio to provide context to this conversation. We're also hoping to have the former senator representing Kaduna Central at the Senate, Senator Shehu Sani, who will be joining us to look at the political implications of the state of emergency in River State. But before all of this, let's hear it from the horse's mouth. Mr. President, as he declares state of emergency in River State.
This is the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA. The President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, addressed
that will redound to the benefit of the good people of the state. The state has been at a standstill since the crisis started, with the good people of the state not being able to have access to the dividend of democracy. Also, it is public knowledge that the governor of Rivers State, for unjustifiable reasons, demolished the House of Assembly of the state as far back as 13th December 2023, and as up till now, 14 months after, now rebuilt the same. I have made personal interventions between the contending parties for a peaceful resolution of this crisis, but my efforts have been largely ignored by the parties to the crisis. I'm also aware that many well-meaning Nigerians, leaders of thought, and patriotic groups have also intervened at various times with the best of intentions to resolve the matter, but all their efforts were also to no avail. Still, I thank them. On February 28, 2025, the Supreme Court, in a judgment in respect to all about 8 consolidated appeals concerning the political crisis in Rivers State, based on several grave unconstitutional acts and disregard of the rule of law that has been committed by the governor of Rivers State, as shown by the evidence before it, pronounced in very clear terms. And I quote, "A government cannot be said to exist without one of the 3 arms that make up of the government of a state under the 1999 Constitution as amended. In this case, the head of the executive arm of the government has chosen to collapse the legislature to enable him to govern without the legislature as a despot. As it is, there is no government in Rivers State," and I quote. The above pronouncement came after a catalog of judicial findings of constitutional breaches against Governor Siminalayi Fubara. Going forward in their judgment, and having found and held that 27 members of the House who had allegedly deflected, and I quote, "are still valid members of Rivers State House of Assembly and cannot be prevented from participating in proceedings of that House by the 8th respondent, that is the governor, in cohort with 4 members, and unquote. The Supreme Court then made some orders to restore the state to immediate constitutional democracy. These orders include the immediate passing of an appropriation bill by the Rivers State House of Assembly, which up to now has not been facilitated. Some militants had threatened fire and brimstone against their perceived enemies of the governor, who has up to now not disowned them. Apart from that, both the House and the governor have not been able to work together. Both of them do not realize that they are in office to work together for the peace and good governance of the state. The latest security report made available to me show that between yesterday and today, there have been disturbing incidents of vandalization of pipelines by some militants without governor taking any action to curtail them. I have, of course, given stand order to the security agencies to ensure safety of lives of good people of Rivers State and the oil pipelines. With all this and many more, no good and responsible president will stand by and allow the grave situation to continue without taking remedial steps prescribed by the Constitution to address the situation in the state, which no doubt requires extraordinary measures to restore good governance, peace, order, and security. In these circumstances, having soberly reflected on and evaluated the political situation in Rivers State, and the governor and deputy governor of Rivers State, having failed to make a request to me as president to issue this proclamation as required by Section 305, Paragraph 5 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, it has become inevitably compelling for me to invoke the provision of the Section 305 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, to declare a state of emergency in Rivers State with effect from today, 18th March, year 2025, and I so do. By this declaration, the governor of Rivers State, Mr. Similaye Fubara, his deputy, Mrs. Ngozi Odu, and all elected members of the House of Assembly State are hereby suspended for an initial period of 6 months. In the meantime, I hereby nominate Vice Admiral Eboket Ibas, retired, as administrator to take charge of the affairs of the state in the interests of the good people of Rivers State. For the avoidance of doubt, this declaration does not affect the judicial arm of Rivers State, which shall continue to function in accordance with their constitutional mandate. The administrator will not make any new laws. He will, however, be free to formulate regulations and may be found necessary to do his job, but such regulations will need to be considered and approved by the Federal Executive Council and promoted by the President for the state. This declaration has been published in the Federal Gazette, a copy of which has been forwarded to the National Assembly in accordance with the Constitution. It is my fervent hope that this inevitable intervention will help to restore peace and order in Rivers State by awakening all the contenders to the constitutional imperatives, binding on all political players in the Rivers State in particular and Nigeria as a whole. Long live a united, peaceful, secured, and democratic Rivers State in particular, and the Federal Republic of Nigeria as a whole. God bless you all for listening. Thank you.
That was President Bola Ahmed Tinubu invoking the provisions of Section 305, subsection 5 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, declaring state of emergency on Rivers State following the political crisis that has persisted in that state. And just like I said earlier, to dissect this issue, we have Barrister Chukwudi Odoeme, Professor of International Law, in the studio. We will also be having, in a short while, Senator Shehu Sani, former senator representing Kaduna Central, to also help us dissect these issues. But before we delve into the conversation proper, let's take a short break. We'll be back shortly. We're looking at the latest development in the polity, talking about the state of emergency declared on Rivers State following the protracted political crisis that has engulfed that oil-rich state. And just like I said earlier, we have in the studio right now Senator Shehu Sani, senator that represented Kaduna Central at the 8th Assembly. Thank you for joining us despite the tight schedule.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we also have in the studio Barrister Chukwudi Odoeme, who is a professor of international law. Thank you for joining the conversation.
My pleasure always.
Right. A very disturbing scenario. Let me start with you, Barrister, talking about the legal aspect. Section 305, Section 5, provides for the president to declare a state of emergency in a circumstance. What do you make up with this proclamation, looking at the situation in Rivers State? The last time we had this kind of proclamation was in 2013, when former President Jonathan declared a state of emergency on 3 states. The Bay States, Borno, Yobe, Adamawa. But at that time, the Boko Haram insurgents were at their peak, They must have killed about over 2,000 people, so to speak. And that then came the state of emergency. And here we are with a rift, if you like, or a political disagreement between 2 parties. A current senator, a current minister, in the FCT, and an elected governor in Rivers State. What do you make up with the justification for this emergency?
Anyway, let me draw attention to the fact that the president was clever enough to avoid mentioning that altercation between the FCT minister and the current governor of Rivers State in his statement to the nation. But he was particular about the possibility, or perhaps if it has happened, the vandalization of the pipelines. And amidst all the political cantankerous developments that may unfold in the days that should have followed, but for the state of emergency that has been declared. Yeah, if you compare that with what happened in Borno, Adamawa, Yobe, it tells us a lot. Yeah, human lives, a whole lot of human lives were on the line in those states. And here we're talking about the oil resources, the pipeline, as he mentioned, which is the heartbeat of the nation. And this is disturbing a little. It shows how little reverence we have for human resources, human beings, should I say, and we'll pay greater attention to money. But as it might be, which of those situations were capable of truncating, the administration of the states, in which case the declaration of state of emergency in such instances were right.
Okay.
So to an extent, I give the president kudos for taking this action. Even though, left for me, I would have thought there would have been better options to do that.
Okay, we'll look at the options perhaps. Senator Shehu Sani, you are part of the people that fought for this democracy, to stay, to emerge and then stay as it is today. Does it bother you to find out that a president, would have to declare a state of emergency, looking at the political situation in Rivers State, suspending, if you like, the symbol of democracy, in that state, talking about the state assembly, the executive branch, and all of that. How does it sound to you as one who has championed, democracy in Nigeria?
Well, the declaration of the state of emergency by the president is the most important thing to do at this very hour. If you are a leader of a country like this, and there is an imminent threat to the peace and stability of the country, you need to act right and at the right time. And what the president did
was in the best interest of this country. Because Rivers State is not just an ordinary state. It's a state that is key and central and important to the economy of the country. And it is a fact on the ground that in the last 1.5 years, the democratic space and governance in the state has been strangled by the feud between the FCT minister and the governor of that state. Now, the president has seen the implication of not doing anything. If the governor ends up being impeached, there will have been trouble and crisis in the state. And if the governor is not impeached, governance will have still been strangled. So the people of the state will pay the price for what is happening, and by the larger extent, the Nigeria as a whole. So the action taken by the president has saved democracy and will restore some semblance of peace, at least for a very moment, giving time for the two gladiators to reach at a consensus so that peace can return to that state. There is nothing the president can do. The next thing he could have done is to fold his arms and see the governor impeached, which he shouldn't, because with the action being taken by militants in the River State, it's clearly indicative that if nothing is done, the economy of the country can be crippled. So I believe that his action is in the best interest of the country, and I support what he has done. And unfortunately, 25 years of democracy, we ought to have graduated and advanced from this stage. Because I can remember the last time a governor was removed was when Obasanjo acted on Dare in Plateau State.
Plateau State, right.
And it came with a lot of crisis. So we thought that Nigeria has advanced beyond that level. But it's clear that at a certain time, the democracy that we also have need to be rescued, and what he has done is in the best interest of that democracy.
Right, okay, the right step at the right time. But some say, you know, it has taken too long to come. There's a lot of expectation as to, you know, the deployment of political solution to the problem, even though there was an attempt by the president to do that, which didn't work out, you know. But many would have expected that, you know, Mr. President prevail on the actors. One of them was actually his employee, so to speak, a minister in his cabinet. And but then it has gone to this level that he has to take this route. Looking at the provisions of the Constitution, Barrister, you know, it suggests, I mean, there's some sort of layers of steps to take before a state of emergency is declared. Do you see, you know, the government exhausted all of those, you know, avenues before declaration?
Yeah, looking at what has been made available to the citizens via the media, I think the president made a conscious effort to get to this point, because I recall that he had invited the governor of Rivers State and the members of the assembly to, you know, see how to factor a truce into what was going on in the state. And the last I heard of it was that the governor went back to the state and wanted to be a good boy when he said he was going to obey the order of the Supreme Court. But suddenly we also heard that the State Assembly resisted that. And I think the president must have done some other things that are not known to the public to be able to come to the conclusion that if nothing is done at this point, what might come next may be unimaginable and may be a threat to national security, in which case the action he has taken now is actually a step in the right direction. That's what I think.
Okay, Senator, looking at you know, the political solution that even though we've gone past that since the declaration has already been made, what do you make up with the capacity, if I should put that way, capacity of the president to address issues of this nature? Many are worried that this shouldn't have taken to this level if Mr. President is actually in charge, if you like, or if he has demonstrated capacity to resolve this amicably. He shouldn't have taken to this level of suspending an entire, you know, democratic structures. Do you see it that way?
Well, for the fact that this provision has been included in our constitution, it's an anticipation that we can have a crisis that the solution is only to apply a state of emergency. The president has, on 2 to 3 occasions, hosted the 2 gladiators for a peace talk, but it is evident that that dialogue failed to produce peace in Rivers State. And even the Supreme Court judgment has not brought peace in the state. With 2 pipelines being blown, if you do nothing, there will be more destruction of oil facilities. And he can invite the 2 to sit down, but when you look at it for the fact that it's also the 2 people are not from his own political party, so there is also a limit to what he can do. And secondly, let's not forget that Niger Delta elders and also Rivers elders have also tried to bring peace between the 2 persons. But it is clear that the House was hell-bent on impeaching the governor, and the governor is determined to stay put. So Rivers State occupying a very important and strategic position in the economy of Nigeria. If you don't do anything, then every part of the country will be affected. And as such, I believe that the 6-month window with the naval chief in charge will now give a space for both the State Assembly and the governor to know that it's either the dialogue and reach an amicable settlement, or they will continue to waste the time of their mandate sitting at home and doing nothing. So, and again, if this action is not taken, those to suffer, when they say when 2 elephants fight, the grass, are the common people in the state. Right. Because the State Assembly is not willing to even accept and admit the governor, talk less of discussing about his budget. And without them doing that, the governor cannot spend money for the people of the state. So the state was paralyzed by this crisis. And as such, this emergency seems to be the only way and the only direction out of this crisis for now.
Right, okay. The concern is the ordinary people. You know, they've been suffering in the last couple of months, almost 18 months, you know. There hasn't been governance as it should be in terms of the deliverables and all of that. But some will say even the state of emergency would also limit such opportunities for the people, because when you suspend, you know, the representatives of the people, the elected government of the people, and you are ruling by fiat, if you like, you know, having a military administrator, does this take cognizance of the fact that how does this take care of, you know, the needs of the ordinary people if the people are central to this conversation?
If I would take a bite on that, there's no vacuum in governance, so to speak, particularly when someone has come to take the place of, you know, another. You know, what's the only difference in the state of affairs in Rivers State now is that the State Assembly is no longer part of the decision making in that state, and they don't have any. They've lost their right over the pulse of the state.
Momentarily, for 6 months.
Yes, 6 months. Even if it's for 1 day, it's significant. So what has happened is that there's a new man on the saddle who also has executive powers. I think the only power the president withdrew from him was to make laws. Yeah. But he has
that has to be subject to, you know, ratification.
Yeah, like he said he shouldn't make new laws, actually.
That's right.
He has the right to make policies. And
is it the National Assembly that would now take that responsibility? Yes, or he talked about the Federal Executive Council.
Yes. The Federal Executive Council will rectify whatsoever he has drawn up as his plan for, you know, managing the state within the time frame. Yeah. But then when it has to do with lawmaking, the National Assembly takes over that responsibility exactly. So in the end, the people of Rivers State are the better for it. At least the crisis would have died down. A military man is in charge. Security will be relatively assured. And the man in charge at the helm of affairs is also someone who is skilled in public administration, because I've gone through his resume. He has done
former chief of naval staff.
Yes, and had some other command positions here and there. So I think he will do justice to the assignment that has been given to him, particularly ensuring peace and order within that time frame.
Okay.
And what do the people of Rivers State actually want from the government other than to ensure peace and the security of the state? I'm sure salaries will be paid, and somehow he will have access to the money due to the state and will spend it meaningfully well for the betterment of the people of Rivers State.
Yeah, Senator, the ultimate objective is to, restore public order, restore peace and stability, and all of that. Do you think that, with this declaration, that would be achieved? Looking at the fact that the hostilities have already started rearing their heads now. In the last couple of hours, within 24 hours, there were 2 attacks on pipelines. Do you see this as a magic one, to address such hostilities?
Well, with the declaration of state of emergency, the suspension of the governor, the deputy governor, and the state assembly, I think what the new administrator need to do at this time is to also engage the people in the state and also engage the aggrieved, because we have the governor and the minister, but they are also their supporters. So he needs to engage the supporters of both fighters and then see how peace can be restored in the state. I have, in the last few days, I've been seeing video clips and threats by groups in Niger Delta, and they have started executing such threats. So he also needs to reach out to them for the fact that the governor was not impeached, and also the governor, the House of Assembly have not had their way, and the governor has also not had his way, and everyone has lost his own position. So it's important for the new administrator to reset and reconfigure. So what is most important for him is now to engage all the forces in the state with the aim of putting the interests of the state first, other than the political interests of those who have been leading this fight. For the president, his action is in the best interest of this country. I have said it earlier, that Rivers is not an ordinary state. It's a state that holds the economic key of the country.
Part of the cash cows.
Yeah, if you don't act on Rivers State, then all parts of Nigeria will be affected. So his action will at least restore some peace. But it is now the buck is on the table of the new administrator to reconcile the forces that have brought all their swords trying to go to physical war, so that at least peace can return to the state for the next 6 months.
Okay, looking at the solution, I mean the decision, the bold decision by the president, and of course the current situation in Rivers State, and then what it did in terms of the implication, if you like, on the polity generally. How do you think this will impact? Because it is not just Rivers State that is having quite a number of issues. Other states like Kano is having its own political tension as a result of the emirship and all of that, and quite a number of. So how do you think this will impact on the general necessity, if you like, or need for stability in the polity?
Yeah. So this is a master stroke. I must give that to the president. What has happened is that if he is able to take decision in Rivers State, is a pointer to other states in Nigeria where there are certain pockets of agitation here and there that are hitting the polity, to take note that the actors may be swept away, at least for some time, if the whatever they are doing escalates beyond what can be managed locally. And for places like Kano, that has been on the news for a long time, is a pointer to them that they need to quickly address those issues, or let them lie low for a very long time. Otherwise, the actors may be swept away. The most important thing here is that some of these actions can only be taken if you have access to the seat of power. So it's important that you retain that seat before your interests can be protected. And part of the protection you need to do now is to make sure that you do not let those crises escalate beyond what they are now. So this is an instructive to those of them who are not managing the affairs of the state correctly to do so immediately. Otherwise, the same hammer may fall on them. So wielding that big stick on them, nobody will want it.
Right. You are also following the development in other states. Kaduna is also part of the state that are getting tense, as a result of the rift between the former governor and the current governor. I talked about Kano, which is also in the list of states that are relatively not stable. What do you think this will do, in addressing some of those agitations?
Well, you see, conflicts can be categorized into 3 to 4 stages. Rivers has reached the apex of it. So in other states, could be in stage 1 or stage 2. It's not like cancer you have. Stage 1,
but that's how that of Rivers also grew.
Yeah.
It was allowed to fester.
But in our own state, Kaduna, we are taking care of the situation, and we're not going to have that problem.
Okay.
But in the general sense, what the president has done will send a clear message to all state governors and all political players that it is in the best interest that you act with responsibility, decorum, and decency in governance, and the need for political forces to work together in the interest of their state. It is sad that this is 2025. And all that you can hear in public discourse is 2027. In Nigeria, we only have governors for 1 year. And then all the rest 4 years is about the next election. So many people in the position of authority are distracted. And governance seems to be diverted from where it should be. And energy, resource, and time is invested in the wrong place other than people enjoying the dividend of democracy and their vote. So it is a message that should go across the board, that if you behave like Rivers State, this is what is going to happen to you. Everyone thought, or many people thought, that the president will sit idly and watch the governor impeached, with the speaker becoming the governor of the state. But it never happened. As such, his intervention...
It's more like a win-win situation for
his
the
intervention may not have pleased the governor, may also not have pleased the State House of Assembly, but the issue is that he has saved the people of the state from the two contending belligerent sides. So, which is the most important. Also, he has saved the country.
Yeah, even though some are looking, when you're looking at the forces, Nigerians will find it extremely difficult to reason why. I don't know how you're looking at it, because one of the contending forces is actually outside, the realm of governance in the state, for instance. But then looking at the decision taken, some would say it will please him because at least it shows that it's still significantly has a very significant influence on the state. Didn't you think that will also have, part of the meaning that people will read to it?
Well, if you look at it, the president acted in the case of Lagos State because he is a direct stakeholder. And I wonder if the president is not from Lagos State and then the speaker was impeached and then he was restored and then calm everywhere. So he has more direct control and involvement in that state. So in the general sense, if we have the kind of River State crisis in some 2-3 places in the country, it will bring down the whole democratic process. If you go through the history of military rule, you will see that it always reaches a point where the president does nothing when there is crisis. And at the end of the day, the roof will all collapse with him inside. So he now, by saving River State, has saved democracy in Nigeria, because if the economy of the country is crippled and there are crises everywhere, we will be out for the Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso situation. So I think he has saved rivers and he has saved Nigeria. And it's also a message to everyone that if you think, because actually what the one side wanted was to remove the governor. And what the governor wanted is to remain as a governor. So if the governor is removed, there is no doubt about it. The economy of the country can be crippled with the attacks on oil facilities. And it's not going to stop in River State. It's going to Delta, Akwa Ibom. We will be back to those days of agitation again. Because it will be the issue of political crisis, then security matters, and then the whole country is plunging into crisis. And if the governor remains on the seat, the point is that he will have no resources, no instrument to work, and the state will be in paralysis.
Right. Okay, and so we'll have to let you go at some point because you have another engagement, but I would have loved you to also, respond to this, whether Mr. President, using the magic wand in Lagos, would also be able to address some of these concerns in these states that we're talking about. They are growing up gradually. In Kaduna, for instance, would he be able to reconcile, the former governor and the incumbent? Because it's also metamorphosing. I've seen, pockets of protests and demonstrations, on one hand. Perhaps there could be counter. And didn't you think that could also snowball?
There will not be counter. We're in charge in Kaduna State.
Okay.
And there is we don't have any problem.
Okay.
And Kaduna State is firmly on the control of Senator Obasani, the governor of the state. And the other person there is out of office. And if there is anything wrong that he has seen, it's a law of karma that is before him. And as for other states,
you think that it's not justifiable? The whole thing, the whole concern.
There's nothing. We're not a river state. Everything is okay in Kaduna State. Thank you very much.
All right. So we have to take a break to allow Senator. He has another engagement, and then we'll continue with the conversation shortly. Stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us on Daily Politics. And today we're looking at the state of emergency imposed on Rivers State by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, following the continuous political crisis in that state, and the need to restore, public order, peace, and stability. And just before the break, it was Senator Shehu Sani talking about the political and other implications of the proclamation of the Section 305, Section 5 of the Constitution, invoking state of emergency. And back in the studio, we still have Barrister Odoeme, a professor of international law, to talk more on this issue. Senator Shehu Sani was looking at the political, implications and all of that. Nigerians are also worried about the impact of all of this in the constitutional democracy that we operate in the country. Largely, some are looking at also the legal angle to it. The Supreme Court judgment was what led to, if you like, trigger the whole, even though it was meant to address it because its decision is final, so to speak. But agitation started from there. So how do we reconcile these issues?
Yeah, so let me deal on the issue of legality generally. For the fact that the possibility of declaration of state of emergency is contained in our constitution, so irrespective of how it's applied, that means it's legal in the first instance. So, but then the application is what is always the issue. So, earlier on in the conversation, we had looked at the possibility of trying other means, which we thought were explored, but maybe not critically explored. Or perhaps critically explored, but not to the knowledge of everybody, perhaps those of us on the street. So the Supreme Court, of course, when they speak, you literally have to find a justification for what I have said, even if you don't agree, because whatever they say is final and is in its finality. So the interpretation of the judgment given by the Supreme Court as regards, whether the members of the House of Assembly who they thought had defected, they actually defected or not, is something that may be at the center of what is happening. But then it may be wrong to say that it was at the center, because the crisis has always been there from the beginning. From the very first day the governor, tried to, severe parts, pathways with,
Mr. President has cited the example with the demolition of the State House of Assembly. And so on.
Yes, even though I'm sure he has access to the security reports, so he was emphatic to say that it was the governor who demolished that. So that's actually a step in showing that actually the man has gone overboard, to do certain things that are unconstitutional. And it would have been lovely to see what allegations the House of Assembly had against him, whether that was part of it. It would have been lovely to see.
But he didn't mention that.
No, of course the
state matter.
No, it's not even a case of being a state matter. The allegation has not been laid. Probably not, crystallized in such a way for all of us to see it and see what they contend. That may be
even though
they
listed all what they call the infractions and all of that.
Yes, but the notice proper, which is encapsulation of the exact reasons why they want to impeach him, would have told us exactly whether that was part of it. So the challenge we have is we are beginning to see a situation where so many things go to the courts, and the rulings and judgments that come from the court are sometimes not exactly given to the interpretation the ordinary man on the street would want. Particularly, it's important for us to realize that interpretation of constitution in democracy is a different ball of game from interpreting constitution under any other system of government. Just like one would have imagined that. Since we started discussing this, I've been wondering what other thing could have the president done
other than this.
Other than this,
yeah.
And I'm beginning to,
especially with the failure of the political option. Now.
Yes. With the failure of the political option, was he going to ask that a new election be conducted? There's no provision for that in the law, within this provision.
So perhaps the 6 month window will be able to provide a space for that. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I was just trying to play around and see what other options could have been there. But this is what the Constitution has provided, and that's the Constitution we're working with today, no matter whether we like it or not. It has been provided by the Constitution, so the President acting on it is perfect. So, but I am looking at what other possibilities could have come. Of course, we couldn't have called for fresh elections. If it was in an under-parliamentary system of government, it would have been easier. Because once you find something bad, you can call for fresh elections immediately. But it's not the same thing with presidential democracy, the type we are running in Nigeria. So the people of Rivers State will have to actually sit down, and the gladiators will also have to think again. The essence of governance is for the people to feel the impact of governance in economy, in security, in welfare generally, and the likes. So once that is not being achieved by anybody in the seat of power, or whoever is helping, or whoever is tangential to it but has a critical role to play, that will be an affront on democracy on itself, and there's nothing legal about it.
Right. Do you see the possibility of this crisis ending soon? Because the 6 months, it is expected that will provide that playing level for all the parties to now reconcile, so that they can come back to a democratic system. But then, in the event things didn't get better, there's an option also for an extension.
Yes, there is.
So which one do you envisage now?
So what I imagine would happen is, particularly the governor and the members of the State Assembly are off the driving seat at this moment. So I think this 6 months will provide them an opportunity for introspection, to check whether, if they had followed through all their plans, whether that would have been advantageous to them and to the people of Rivers State. And this is just like a ceasefire.
Yeah.
This is just like a ceasefire. No one knows what to come out from it. They may be sober. They may also go back to the trenches to arrange for the end of the 6 months. And I want to believe that the president will be willing to extend it if nothing reasonable happens within these 6 months. But I think something will happen. The legislators will lose. The governor will also lose. The other gladiators, they may think they have won, but then when in other situations there's no winner. There's no victor,
no victor, no vanquish. Thank you very much, Barrister Chukwudi Odoeme, for your informed perspectives.
Thank you.
We always appreciate.
My pleasure.
And viewers, that's a wrap on today's edition of Daily Politics. Do join us tomorrow. We'll be back with another interesting topic and personalities. Until then, on behalf of the technical crew, my name is Shafiu Suleiman. Many thanks for being there.